Wow, good morning, beautiful people of planet Earth and all other interdimensional entities and all sentient beings across this great wide cosmos, this unreality reality we find ourselves in our 3D corporal flesh. I'm out enjoying the garden here at Sacred Space Titania's realm. It's another glorious day. Do you want to take a peek? I'll show you. The African tulip trees are just splendid and light. Little bows happily munching. Kumi also. And we're all rather happy in our little corner of planet Earth, although I received some very sad news that a long time friend, I haven't had much contact with them over the years, so it's bittersweet that we didn't get to spend more time together, but they were dear friends to me when I was a teenager and a young woman, young married wife, woman and mother. And before I migrated here to Brisbane in 1988, where we kind of, got separated by space and dimensionality, but the love remains. And so Vale John Hickman, he was a Dutchman married to my Israeli friend Tali Hickman Rudi, and I was very sad to hear of his passing. I received the news yesterday afternoon. I think he passed the day before, I'm not sure. But anyway, Tully posted it yesterday afternoon, and it came as a great shock. He passed away with cancer. I didn't even know he was sick. And I was trying to remember how old he is. I think he was a fair bit older than me. Tully, I think, is 8 years older than me, I think. Or is she 12 years? I think she's 12 years older. And he was about 16 years older. I think he was the same age as my former brother-in-law. So that would make him about 76. So it's still distressing, because he was a wonderful, wonderful man who both he and Tully had been very kind to me, especially when I went back to New Zealand for my first and only holiday back in New Zealand, which was 20 years ago now. I'd been living here for 17 years and it was my first trip back. And my sister and half-sister and brother-in-law acted so weird, and kind of, as soon as I arrived, there was a big fucking scene, and really I had packed my bag to go catch the first flight back home, but my brother-in-law interceded, because probably didn't want to look foolish having me come straight back to Brisbane, and must have realised that the behaviour was awful. I don't even know what all of that was about. To this day, I don't understand it, the viciousness. I was very fat then and on heavy psych meds, and you can see it in my photos from that trip. It was all bloated and shuffling, so maybe that was an excuse for my sister to be cruel. I don't know what that was about. But anyway, Tully and John, I contacted them, and because I was in Wellington, New Zealand for 3 weeks, staying with my half-sister, and they came and actually rescued me. Came and took me for dinner at their home. They were living just off Courtenay Place. Can't remember the name of that suburb, but they had a beautiful B&B, and they even suggested that I stay with them for the remainder of the holiday, but I knew if I did that, my sister would be even more livid and there'd be even more ugliness. And I just thought, oh well, you know, and I didn't want to be a burden to Tully and John because, you know, bed and breakfast, that's how they were making their money in those days. So I didn't want to take up one of their rooms, and didn't have a lot of money. Not that they mentioned money at all, but, you know, I just didn't want to be a burden. But they were so wonderful to me, picked me up, gave me this wonderful dinner, and spent a wonderful evening with me, and we chatted and talked over old times and told them about my life in Brisbane, and John just would look at me with such calm and peace. He was such a beautiful man, and his eyes always shone with happiness, and he loved Tully so very, very much. He was a wonderful husband and lover to her. And I'll never forget that wonderful comfort of being amongst people who actually see me and love me and treated me with kindness. It was a balm to my soul, and I soaked it up like a sponge. And maybe I should have stayed with him, not been so worried about what my evil sister and her husband thought. And anyway, I didn't. And then I didn't see them again in person because subsequently they migrated back to, Tully wanted to go home to Israel, and so they went back and they lived in Israel, and they've been there ever since. And John Hickman had a long and happy life with Tully there in Israel for the last 20 years. And I did worry about their safety from time to time, you know, with all the rocket launches and all the wars. And I'd sort of on Facebook send them messages of love and support, but we never really spoke, you know, in chat on Messenger. We never really connected and communicated much. But as I wrote about him this morning on Facebook, I always knew that out in the world there was at least one good, kind, decent, honouring man who had been there for me when I was back in New Zealand, and had treated me with such sweetness and such calm and such peace. And so to you, John, you're a wonderful soul, and may your transition into the next dimension be gentle and kind, and may you be in the ever-loving arms of the Ein Sof, and the love that is eternal, and eternal peace and eternal calm. And maybe one day we'll meet again. I probably won't recognise you though, because you'll be in your true form, a great, great spirit. Blessed be. So apart from that grief of losing a dear friend that I haven't actually seen for 20 years, him and his beautiful, talented wife, she's a wonderful artist. And it's a kind of grief that I ended up in such dire poverty that I was never able to travel to Israel to see them. It was always, you know, in the back of my mind that if I got enough money I would go to Israel and I would visit them as part of the journey and the trip around Israel. And so there's a kind of a grief mixed up in it with my own failure to be successful and prosper and thrive. And I'm distressed, but you know, the love remains and the friendship remains, and I carefully nurture and nourish those sweet memories of a man who was kind to me and respectful and honouring. And there's been a few rare birds like him in my life, and by the gods, I'm grateful for them every moment and breath and day of my life. Those good, kind, decent, honouring men. So blessed be. I've posted videos up on my YouTube. I was trying to catch a little bow singing and he stopped because I stood in the doorway. So I filmed all the beautiful sun catcher crystal refractions all over my kitchen and hallway, and I can't help feeling it was a bit of a blessing to see John out on. And then the little one started singing again, so I stayed in my kitchen and just quietly filmed me listening to his song. And so in spite of the grief over losing a dear old friend, it's been a beautiful morning, and I think John would have liked that. But I got to see yet another beautiful, magical psychedelic reflected morning. I even captured the light spectrum on my, I think it was my left eye. No, it would have been my right eye, because when I was sitting in the kitchen. Anyway, it was cosmic and delightful. So I continue on reading Satan's Choice. We've got 2 chapters left, so we'll get into it. I don't know if I'll be able to do 2 whole chapters. They're longer ones, but we'll see how we go. If I don't drift off into hyperspace as I do with my memories and my triggering and my segues, and I just purely read it straight and dry. Mama T doesn't like dry boringness. We might complete this book today, and if not, I'll come back tomorrow to finish the last chapter. But my goal is to reach completion today. Right. Hello, my beautiful boys. Oh, I'm so grateful for those beautiful birds and seeing their happiness. Bo really loves having a much larger cage and having freedom in his feathers and able to move about and stretch and be happy. So it's gorgeous. Right, chapter 33, Illegal Showdown. He felt like picking on an old guy. I hit him 6 or 7 times. Lorne Campbell. Campbell's trial was set to begin on Monday, September 13th, excuse me, 2010, at the Toronto Courthouse on University Avenue, a stately limestone building just down the road from the formal mental asylum grounds where the provincial legislature now sits. Shortly before the first day of court, Campbell received a card from Reverend Douglas Tibbet, a heavy-set, leathered man who had been officiating at biker funerals since the 1960s. There is a strong team on the internet standing in strength for you. Some of the bikers who had once found freedom and brotherhood on the open roads now sought them online. Campbell marked the opening day of the trial with an entry in his journal. At the top of each page was a religious inscription. On that day, quote, "For the Lord is good, his mercy is everlasting, and his truth endureth to all generations." Close quote. Psalms 100:5. That'll be verse 5. Anyway. Campbell's handwritten entry for that day dealt with something far less than absolute godly truth. In pencil it read, "Start of trial." By that were 3 stars. It continued, 5:55 breakfast, chest and back pain. Campbell had elected trial by jury. Almost 3 years in jail with no bail, nor even time to attend his mother's funeral, had convinced him that trial by judge alone would be suicide. Campbell's trial was being conducted at the same time as the cases against John Winner Neale, the 60-year-old president of the downtown Toronto Hells Angels, Vice Presidents Larry Pooler, 60, and Douglas Miles, 54, and member Mehdad Mark, or Juicy, Barman, 49. 2 currents ran through each of their cases. The first one was relatively commonplace and grubby and involved the efforts by Shaky Dave Atwell to draw as many of his clubmates as possible into low-level drug and weapons deals. Campbell fell into the net when he agreed to take $1,000 for setting Atwell up with Sean Robinson. I've got my chocolate eclairs, but they're not pickle flavoured this time. You'll be glad to know that was a gastronomic experience by the gods. Soaked pickle flavour getting into my chocolate eclairs from the jar. Now I put the jars out in the sun for a few days and get rid of the aroma, which is very hard to get rid of, even after a few days. Sometimes it's still there. So I'm going to multitask, people of Earth, because I am a multitasker. The second current was far more serious. It involved allegations of criminal conspiracy and committing crimes for the benefit of a criminal organisation. Feeling quite hot, would you believe? Don't know what that's about. Probably upsetting myself over losing our beautiful, beautiful John. Not a cloud in the sky today. It's exquisite. Exquisiteness, people of Earth. Staying present, no matter what, no matter who. I know, I'm drifting, I know. At its core were Giuseppe Barman and his dealings with Vincenzo Jimmy Sansoloni of the Haney BC Charter of the Hells Angels, and Omid Mo Bayani of the United Nations, a new and particularly violent group of West Coast criminals. The United Nations was a gang that existed to commit crimes, with none of the bikers' allusions to brotherhood. Originally called the Global United Nations Syndicate, GUNS, their name referenced their multi-ethnic nature, as the gang had Indo-Canadian, white, Iranian and Asian members. Much of their money came from flying tons of high-grade British Columbian cannabis by private planes and helicopters into the United States, where they swapped it for cocaine to sell at home. This business meant run-ins with BC Hells Angels as they carved out their market. Bayani had middling power in his group, which boasted about 75 members in the lower mainland area of BC. The commonly accepted story behind Bayani is that when he was just 5 years old, his father was murdered in Iran, and the word Baha'i was written on his lifeless chest by Iranian fundamentalists bent on stamping out the Baha'i faith. Why are they like this? The Baha'i people, their religion is actually quite lovely. It's an offshoot of Zoroastrianism, as far as I know, as far as I comprehend it. Why are people so ugly to each other? Why, people of Earth? Well, we'll find out if 31-Atlas ever gets here, won't we? Maybe that's what it takes to get people to be kind to each other. The threat of annihilation by an advanced alien species. Ironic that we can't pull it together all by ourselves. Odd. I've got caramel stuck in my teeth. Multitask, multitask. I'm going to have to deal with that. Otherwise it'll glue my mouth together. Wouldn't you love that if my mouth got glued together and I was forever silenced? The Tanya will never be silenced. Ever. My voice and my trauma processing and my experiential awareness and my memories will echo out across the ether for eternity. Right. Bayani's family fled to Turkey, and when he was 16 he arrived in Red Deer, Alberta, with his mother and sisters. He found work at a fast food restaurant and was still in his teens when he drew a 4-year term in a medium security prison for a crime spree Wearing a balaclava, he'd robbed workers at 5 convenience stores for cash and cigarettes at knife point. If Bayani was bad on the streets, he was even worse behind bars. He ran up 21 more charges as a prisoner, including one for beating an inmate's face with a club that had the words "goof beater" carved into it. He was bumped up from a medium to a maximum security prison, where his behaviour only got worse as he constantly tried to goad guards into fights. On July 20th, 1997, the Federal Immigration Minister signed a deportation application to send him back to Iran, declaring him a, quote, a danger to the public of Canada, unquote. His lawyer fought back with an application to stay in Canada on humanitarian and compassionate grounds. As the lawyers wrangled, Bayani floated away on bail and began doing business with fellow Iranian immigrant Juicy Barman, when Barman was just a Hells Angels prospect, meaning he wasn't fully patched yet, wasn't a full member yet. Bayani had fronted Barman 600 litres of the date rape drug GHB worth $80,000, with an agreement to pay him back with the profits from sales. When police caught wind of the deal, they lifted the drug from the Toronto garage where it had been stored and staged things to look as if there had been a break-in. What happened next was predictably tense. The United Nations threatened to murder Barman if he didn't pay back the $80,000 he owed them. Barman didn't have the money to do so without sales proceeds from the drugs, which had been taken by the police. The BC Hells Angels needed some sort of truce to get the United Nations off their backs, since Barman's dealing threatened their credibility. Furthermore, there was a principle at stake for the bikers. Hells Angels have a no rips or no drug rip-off rule, and Barman's predicament reflected badly on all of them. Despite the mess, Barman had gone on to get his full patch, and the club in BC and Ontario inherited his troubles. Toronto President John Winner Neale felt the need to mediate, even though no one in the Toronto Charter had been part of the GHB deal apart from Barman. Nobody knew about this, but Juicy, Campbell explains. It was no club conspiracy to deal GHB. They don't even know what it was. There were times during the preliminary held by Justice Gail Dobney when the Angels might have been forgiven if they had reconsidered their effort to save Juicy's skin. We got company, boys. The little Indian minor birds bathing in the guttering. Oh, they love that. Yes, they do. He was farting from the prisoner's box during the preliminary. He thinks it's funny. I said, "That's the judge that's judging you, you stupid fuck. That's the judge that's judging me too. We're facing years. I'm getting double digits if we're convicted, you stupid fuck." It was funny when he called her Judge Dodge Omni, but the loud farting had to stop. She seemed to be reading papers, but she had to hear it. I spoke to him. He stopped doing it. How do you control flatulence, people of Earth? Squeeze a sphincter so tight or something? I don't know. It's a bit odd. Find that passage a bit odd. Passage. See what I did there? Well, that was not intentional. But never mind. Never mind, I do have a way with words. Even with Juicy's newfound efforts to control his flatulence in the prisoner's box, he remained a bore at heart. You can't imagine the pig that the guy is. He revelled in displaying the tattoo of Juicy that ran across his ample belly. He was fond of showing people that. Juicy didn't say how he got the nickname, and there was a good chance not many people would have wanted to know. Perhaps the worst part of sharing close quarters with Juicy was when he ate, and his big, round face moved like oatmeal coming to a boil, with every muscle actively involved in the chewing, smacking, sucking and swallowing of whatever was on his plate. It was even worse than eating with Pigpen back in the old Satan's Choice days. He, Pigpen, eats normally. He was brought up as a gentleman. It was the acts that he did that got him his name. Just notice that my hands have got that weird swelling they get under the skin. Can you see it? Oh well, 60 years old when I should have died a multiple of times, even in childhood. Not doing too shabbily, people of Earth, if I say so myself. During the court case, Campbell finally learned why he had been mud tested in Haney, BC, at the Angels clubhouse. It was because Juicy, who was then just a prospect, had used the Angels' name to get into the GHB deal with Bayani and the United Nations, only to screw it up and bring heat back on the club. That's why I got mud tested. That's why they said, we don't like guys coming here from Ontario and acting like they've been Hell's Angels for 15 years. I had no idea until the court case. I just knew I was mud tested. During the preliminary hearing, Campbell watched as Bayani sat quietly near Evelyn in the public area of the courtroom. Bayani was free on bail and curious to hear what was being said about him. One day he heard the police intercept of a conversation in which Barman ridiculed Bayani's clothing and then threatened to chop him up into little bits. I didn't know where to look, Evelyn recalls. He smiled. Campbell was also watching Bayani's face and found himself thinking he would be a good man to stand beside in a war. I've been involved in a lot of violence. I looked at him and thought, so has he. He didn't let anything bother him. I never met him in the life, but I liked his style. After 3 months of pre-trial wrangling, Campbell was eager to defend himself. Bryant set the tone for his defence when he opened the actual trial before Justice Maureen Forstall. By filing seemed to have quite a few female judges in Canada. I think that's a good thing, but it's a bit astonishing. Wish I'd had female judges presiding over my cases when I needed protection from my own government, of which I received none, by the way. Evil it was. Really fucking evil. But I gotta let it go, otherwise it just eats and eats and eats, and it'll give me cancer too. And I've already battled skin cancers for years, so yes, one must keep oneself internally pristine as much as possible, although I can't help but have the rage flare up from time to time at what has been stolen from me by evildoers. If not for all of that, I could have been in Israel with Tali and John at least on a few occasions over the last 20 years. Anyway, if truth be known, they probably barely bloody remember me, and I'm idealising that whole friendship. Let's be real here, I do that. I idealise people sometimes. That's because how much I appreciate kindness shown to me, and respect and sweetness. And anyway, Bryant set the tone for his defence when he opened the actual trial before Justice Maureen Forstall by filing a statement from Campbell that became the trial's first exhibit. It was an acknowledgement that he was a full-patch Hells Angel, and proud of it. As the trial began, Campbell became concerned that Juicy seemed prepared to cut a deal and plead guilty to conspiracy. To protect the club as a whole, Campbell quickly moved to put the brakes on any individual deal-making. By their very nature, conspiracy charges involve more than one person. I told him, Juicy, don't do that. Don't tell me you can make a deal for conspiracy and not involve anyone else. Juicy agreed and didn't go ahead with any conspiracy deal. Ouch. It's got this one little piece of a leaf and it just keeps tickling me, and now it's driven me nuts. Like Chinese water torture. Push it away from me. By the gods, my skin's so sensitive. Where were we? He immediately pleaded guilty to 9 charges of trafficking drugs and possession of the proceeds of crime. He entered not guilty pleas to possession of brass knuckles and to trafficking drugs and guns to benefit a criminal organisation. In her opening remarks, Crown Attorney Tanit Gilliam said that Atwell's undercover operation was halted after Miles grilled him in February 2007 about his involvement in a number of cocaine and GHB deals gone bad. That was around the time Shaky Dave started acting whiny to Campbell about people saying mean things about him. Gilliam told the court that Neil, Miles and Paula stepped in to arrange payment of Barman's drug debt. This was done in order to protect the reputation and good name of the Hells Angels. Lawyers for Neil, Miles and Paula countered that the Toronto Hells Angels weren't trying to traffic GHB, just protect Barman's skin from angry drug dealers from BC. As the Angels saw things, they were now being punished for peacemaking. Am I getting sunburnt, people of Earth? Look a bit burnt, don't I? By the gods. Well, it is what it is. Mama T's not allowed to get burnt because of her proclivity to sprout cancers. Well, I don't have any shade because I'm under the frangipani tree, but the frangipani tree is naked for winter, so there's no actual protection from the sun. Ah well, it is what it is, boys. Your wonderful but mad mother reading in the sunshine. I'm not that mad. I'm also not that wonderful, but you know, poetic hyperbole, people of Earth. Gotta ride with the whimsies sometimes. Amidst the intrigue and talk of murder plots, there was time for a food fight. Legal affairs writer Tracy Tyler of the Toronto Star reported that Toronto jail residents such as Campbell received only $1.19 worth of food for their lunch, which often was no more than a semi-nutritious cheese sandwich and a glass of water with artificial flavour crystals. Why do they do that? Poison the water with that crap. It's awful. I'm livid to this day about the Moreton Bay nursing home putting lemon flavoured artificial flavouring in the old residents' bloody water, and it literally tasted like bleach. My mother was dehydrating, refusing to drink it. I thought, oh, it's just dementia, and I'd sit there and go, well, she had Alzheimer's. Drink it, Mum, drink it. And she was non-verbal by that stage already. So I took a sip of the poisonous fucking toxic wasteland stuff and nearly gagged on it. It tasted exactly like bleach. I said, Mum, I'm so sorry. I've been trying to force you to drink this and it's completely unpalatable. And you know what? As gaga as she was with Alzheimer's, there was a flicker in her eyes when she had a moment of cognition that I understood her predicament. I went and yelled at the kitchen staff and said, for the love of God, stop feeding them that poisonous shit. There's nothing wrong with it. I said, drink it and tell me there's nothing wrong with it. I've just tasted it myself. And they looked at me in shock, you know. They did take a sip and they went, oh my God, that is awful. I said, you're killing the residents. They're dehydrating rather than drink that stuff. Just give them plain water with some lemon slices. Surely it can't cost more than that awful bloody cordial you're putting in it. They nodded. I hope they did do that. Even plain water's better than that poisonous wasteland. Oh, it was awful. I'd get so triggered whenever I visited my mother because there was always some new fucking systemic abuse. Some of it they were even oblivious to themselves. By the gods. I got that place shut down in the end. I take great pride in that. It was evil. Evil what was going on. Up there with the Romanian orphanages in the 90s. Those old people had no clothes. They got no visitors, although that's their family and friends' faults. But, you know, they were isolated and left to rot with their slowly dementing brains without even clothes. I told my friend Lynn, and she gathered up resources from all her friends and her little network of people that, you know, do social justice things. I went in with 2 great big bags, black garbage bags, massive big ones, of clothes for the women at least. But there I didn't have anything for the elderly men. Oh, it was awful, awful, beyond words. In the end, I called in the independent visitor. I said, you need to have a look at what's going on in there. I said, visiting my mother is torture because I can see all the things that they're doing that are just not acceptable behaviour, actually. Not acceptable. And within a couple of months after that, the place was shut down. So, yes, I too, on rare occasions, can be an earth angel. Well hated for it too, by the way. But don't treat old and vulnerable people like animals just because their brains are disintegrating inside their skulls. It's evil. It's a strange noise you're making, Kermie. Very strange noise. You happy? You happy, birdie? You're a happy birdie. Yes, you are. You beautiful boy. You're my beautiful boy, Kermie. And Bo. You're both beautiful in your own unique ways. I love you. They are so sweet, really, the two of them. Right, I had that segue, but it was an important segue because I really did do that, people of Earth. It's what I went through, all that trauma. Just trying to do the decent thing and visit my mother who'd been nothing but evil to me my entire life, although right up until, you know, that dark day in hell in 2000 when I was 35, I'd been in denial about what a rotten, shitful, negligent, paedophile enabling mother she'd really been. But when she said that to me, that my half-sister and I were dirty little girls and we deserved everything that happened to us, I was 35 on that dark day in hell, September 2000. And I almost suicided that day coming back from the lawyer's office where she was making a will in my favour, ironically. But that she was like that. She would play games with money and then she'd turn rotten. I said to the lawyer as he came down the stairs, rip that will up. It means nothing to me. I'm done with her. I still went back, even knowing that she was rotten and evil and perverted for the last 18 months of her life. Trying to draw out her true spirit out of that mushy, disintegrated brain that probably looked like Swiss cheese on her if you did a CAT scan on her. Anyway, it was awful. It was beyond awful. It was just one more thing that I barely survived. One more thing, people of Earth. So, excuse me if you ever see me conflagrate into almost instant berserker, Viking berserker rage, because now that I'm old, when I see people being ugly or abusive or horrible right in front of me, I can't contain it anymore, and I can't be silent, and I can't be complicit. Because I was put through too much in my entire life. Far, far too much. Anyway. That paled the cheap sandwich and the artificial flavoured water. That paled compared with the $5.85 spent for jailhouse lunches in Newfoundland, where prisoners often died on grilled salmon and grilled chicken pitas, roast beef, mashed potatoes and coleslaw, which they could wash down with skim milk. In the end, the downtown Toronto Angels were allowed to buy their own lunches from the court cafeteria. While this meant healthier, better tasting food, it also meant an added expense of thousands of dollars for Evelyn as the trial dragged on. Campbell's diary entry for Tuesday, October 19th read, 5:05, breakfast. Motion to sit beside my lawyer denied. Won the food fight. We're allowed lunch from CAF. We pay. No hot. When Shaky Dave Atwell took the stand in mid-November, he was dressed in a conservative business suit, shirt and tie, and looked like an undertaker, not a biker. He quickly told the court he expected to spend the rest of his life in hiding. I'm a rat, he told Crown Attorney Fayaz Alipai. I've got to be hiding for the rest of my life, sir. As Shaky Dave confided his fears, his former clubmates showed not even a flicker of sentiment towards him. This was according to plan. It was like the shunning by a strict religious order of a wayward former member whose very existence is not worthy of the slightest acknowledgement. Campbell had reminded the others in the box to keep any reactions in check. Do not make any emotion towards anybody. Don't huff, don't make a face. It was hard, even for me. It just looks bad, and it's a kid thing to do. He gave the same caution to Evelyn, who was in a front row of the courtroom daily. Atwell craved attention, and Campbell didn't want them to give him any. Shaky Dave fought to keep his voice even as he noted there was a photo of Steve Hannibal Galt on the walls of clubhouses across the province. Written over Galt's photo inside the Toronto clubhouse were the words rat and liar. Evelyn, meanwhile, studied the eyes of jurors. She felt that one of them had a crush on Tony Bryant, as she seemed to have a bad case of moon eyes. That was good. However, two of them seemed to have a crush on Atwill. That was very bad. Atwill continued his testimony, noting that some members of the club once wore patches on their vests that read, "Filthy Few." He explained, "Those members of the Hells Angels have killed for the club." That had recently been replaced by a patch called Front Line after "Filthy Few" began to attract too much police and media attention, he said. In fact, the downtown Toronto Hells Angels routinely swept their fortified clubhouse for police listening devices and spoke with hand signals and code words when discussing drug deals. There was a lot of note writing, and you'd burn the note afterwards. There was a lot of talking in code and signals. Code for a kilogram of cocaine was holding car keys, while touching one's nose meant cocaine. Rubbing a thumb over a cheek meant mafia, while tugging on a sleeve was shorthand for buying drugs on the cuff, with payment coming later. He added that he personally had upgraded the infrared security camera system around the clubhouse. Atwill said that the clubhouse had a sliding steel front door and concrete pillars, disguised as flower planters, to slow down any police battering rams heading their way. Cocaine and marijuana were freely consumed inside the Eastern Avenue clubhouse. Atwill continued, and he personally had been a frequent and enthusiastic user. You go to a biker party, there are guys smoking pot in one corner and guys doing lines of cocaine in another corner. Campbell's journal entry for Thursday, December 2, was printed below a particularly apt line of scripture. "There is no peace, saith my God, to the wicked." Isaiah chapter 57, verse 21. Campbell's entry that day read, "Got in a fight in medical bullpen and put in the hole. Misconduct." His heart troubles re-emerged, and seeing a doctor while in custody was always a strain. You can't get upset with a doctor in there. They'd take you and throw you in the hole. One day when court wasn't sitting, Campbell went to the jail's medical centre. When he got up to ask a question, a young convict rushed into his seat. "I'm sitting here," Campbell said. "Fuck you," the inmate replied. He felt like picking on the old guy. "I hit him 6 or 7 times. Before each shot, Campbell called out, "Watch out!" The young prisoner wasn't able to connect with shots of his own. While they were taking me away, I said, "Nice try, kid." "What you doing, Kermie?" "Happy boy. Happy boy." On Friday, January 14th, Andre Wattiel of the Kitchener Angels sent Campbell a card from jail in Hamilton. 2 days earlier, Wattiel had been hit with a 6.5-year sentence for trafficking in cocaine and possessing the proceeds of crime. He had earlier pleaded guilty to selling almost a kilogram of high-grade cocaine to police during 28 separate deals. He was ordered to return the $60,000 that police provided to an undercover agent to buy the cocaine, as well as forfeit a PT Cruiser he drove during some of the coke deals. As he passed sentence, Ontario Court Justice John Takich noted that Watil had been a prominent member of the Satan's Choice Motorcycle Club before it patched over to the Hells Angels in Sorel, Quebec in December 2000. The judge also noted that Watil and his wife organised a Christmas toy drive and performed other charitable good deeds in their community. However, Takich continued, these acts of community service were outweighed by the damage drugs cause society. Cocaine is an insidious poison that has destroyed innumerable lives, Takich said. Even before 1 ounce reaches the street, it is indubitably soaked with the blood of others. Watil felt the judge couldn't see past his Hells Angels membership, writing Campbell, in my sentencing, the judge focused more on my membership than the crimes. I don't think anybody gets a fair trial. Back at Campbell's own trial, there were a few light moments on Friday, February 11th, when downtown Vice President Larry Pooler got to play lawyer and cross-examine at will. Jurors and prisoners grinned as Pooler presented himself as a model of civility, looking dapper in a pinstriped charcoal business jacket, with his long grey hair pulled back in a tight ponytail. Pooler had been free on strict bail conditions and was acting as his own lawyer in a $9 sports jacket he had bought at a Salvation Army store. He asked Atwill to think back to his mother's death in 2002. Did the club not support you, rally around you, attend the funeral, that kind of thing? Pooler asked. Some members attended the funeral, Atwill replied, controlling his emotions. For much of his 2-hour cross-examination, Pooler asked Atwill about club rules against having unpaid bills or cheating people in business transactions. Would you not agree that I was a stickler for the rules? Pooler asked. For some rules, countered Atwill. Pooler asked Atwill what he considered to be Pooler's line of work. You had a couple of concerts and bike shows, he replied. I never attended any of them. So I was a self-employed businessman. Yeah, that would be fair. Have you known me to be a drug user? Pooler continued. I thought I seen you smoking a joint. I could be wrong. I never knew you to be a drinker either. Pooler asked Atwill if he could remember serving as a bodyguard for a man named Larry. That guy who pulled a gun on you? Pooler didn't flinch at the reply, moving on to the next question on several sheets of notes in front of him. Some jurors smiled at Pooler scrupulously observed courtroom protocol, addressing Atwill as Mr. Atwill and at one point saying to Judge Forstall, "May I approach the witness, Your Honour?" "Yes," the judge replied. Atwill had earlier testified that men joining the Hells Angels are required to fill out a form giving personal information, such as the names and addresses of relatives. The form also asked if you might have pets or other issues that require attention. Paula asked, referring to a club practice of taking care of each other's pets when members were suddenly pinched by police. I like that. Having someone you can trust to look after your pets when you suddenly get struck down with illness or need surgery or, in their case, get suddenly removed from society, being pinched by police. It's not the pet's fault. Atwill responded with a shrug. Paula asked Atwill about a business dispute over a vehicle sale while Atwill was working as a police agent. "Is it true that you took a baseball bat out of your vehicle and proceeded to smash the lights out of that vehicle?" Paula asked. "I think it was a bat that was already there and it was another vehicle," Atwill replied, as if the clarification made a significant difference. Paula quizzed Atwill on whether he managed to settle all of his debts before he disappeared into witness protection, including one to a man named Lou. "You owed some money to the underworld?" Paula asked. "I didn't," Atwill said. "But he, Lou, believed you did. He can believe anything he wants." Atwill sounded a bit testy now, as Paula asked if Atwill knew if Lou was connected to serious players in the underworld. "I met Peter Scarcella through him," Atwill replied, referring, or might be Scarcella, I'm not sure, referring to the former, I don't speak Italian, referring to the former driver of murdered mobster Paul Volpe. Atwill stopped there, not elaborating on any alleged underworld debts. Campbell and Bryant had thought of lightening things up by playing the jury an audio recording of Atwill singing karaoke at a bar with fellow Hells Angels. Shaky David wore only a sheet as he lay on his back and belted out the Ray Stevens novelty tune, Ahab the Arab. But without video, they decided not to. It might not have made any great legal point, but it would have been fun. Bryant had wanted to put Campbell in the stand, but Campbell nixed the idea. The only other time he had testified in court was at the trial for the Bill Matiak shooting, and that couldn't have gone much worse. Besides, lead investigator Al Rennie of the OPP likely knew plenty more about the Hells Angels internationally than he did. If Campbell was asked questions that he couldn't answer, that would only make him look evasive. In the end, none of the Angels took the stand. Just bear with me a moment. My boy's ripping up paper and I want to give him a big Banksia flower, or what it is, a kind of a flower. One moment, it's going to take me a while to get up. I've got sciatica. Ouch, ouch. Right, here we go. We're up, we're up, we're up. Isn't it beautiful, people of Earth? Can you see it? Looks better in the sunshine. Let's get us out in the sun. Here we go. Look at that. Isn't it splendid? There were a couple of little teeny tiny native bees on it, but I chased them away. They don't sting, but I just don't want them being potentially eaten by the little Kermy boy. Let's give it to him, shall we, together? People of Earth, we've got to have some loveliness in amongst the kind of awfulness and ugliness. Right, here we go. Good boy, little Kermy boy. Here's your little flower. Oh, fluttering by. That'll keep him busy. Give you something else to do apart from chew newspaper. Funny birdie. Who's a funny birdie? He's a funny birdie. Here we go. He'll get to that when I move away. Got a flower, look, a big Banksia flower. It'll give you something to do. Yes, good boy. What's little Bo doing? He's being a good boy too. Handsome boy. All right, let's continue with the story, beautiful fellow earthlings. He's getting into it now. Lovely. I knew he'd like that. One day in the prisoner's box, Campbell felt a great weight crushing his chest. There hadn't been anything particularly exciting or stressful going on when the pains hit. He didn't want to think it might be his heart, but that was the obvious conclusion. Doug Miles pushed him to tell a court officer. Court was halted as an ambulance was called. Paramedics took his vital signs and then rushed him to the hospital. 2 East Detention Centre guards stayed with him throughout. I was shackled and handcuffed to the hospital bed, but that is standard procedure. A man having a fucking heart attack. Jesus. Well, I guess, I guess there's potential that he might somehow rise up and get violent in the midst of a heart attack. Don't know. The scare happened on one of the few days Evelyn wasn't in court. Tony Bryant called their close friend Elizabeth Sanchez, who broke the news to her. For a frantic few hours, Evelyn tried to figure out where her husband had been taken and how he was doing. They weren't any help at the jail, where a guard said words to the effect of, "All we know is that if he doesn't come back, we put him down as escaped and we go looking for him." Finally, Evelyn got through to his hospital ward, where a nurse said, "Oh, he's fine. He's joking around with all of the nurses." Campbell received a letter sent April 10th, 2011, from Sean Nine Fingers Maclay, writing from Gravenhurst Minimum Security Prison. Maclay was in custody for cocaine trafficking, and Evelyn had taken him on as a foster child of sorts. She bought Nine Fingers black jeans and t-shirts from Walmarts and Value Villages and Giant Tigers, so that he wouldn't look too raggedy in court. She did the same for other inmates who didn't have anyone to look out for them. She found that inmates were notoriously bad at estimating their sizes, and she often had to make an educated guess. He always appreciated that, Evelyn said. From his cell, Nine Fingers wrote to Campbell, "I'm here with Forehead and Eddie, the king of Regent Park. They both say hi. I'm out in 25 days, so this will be the last letter from me for a while, as I can't be in contact with anyone while on parole, 14 months. I'll just be keeping a low profile and working. After all the bullshit is done with, we should meet up for a drink of scotch. See you then. Respects, Sean Nine Fingers." In his closing remarks in May 2011, Bryant acknowledged that the jurors must be sick of the legal system after 9 months of hearing evidence. They get paid quite handsomely, by the way, but it is stressful, very traumatising at times. He quoted from Shakespeare's Henry VI, Part 2, which includes the line, "The first thing we do is kill all the lawyers." That was always sure to get at least a smile from tired jurors. Then he drew from Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland and the passage on the trial of the Knave of Hearts, who was accused of stealing the Queen of Hearts' tarts. "Consider your verdict," the king said to the jury. "Not yet, not yet," the rabbit hastily interrupted. "There's a great deal to come before that." That bloody leaf is annoying me again. People of Earth, you have to laugh, don't you? Kermie's really ripping at that flower, he's loving it. I knew you'd love that, Kermie boy. See, you've got to trust me that when I bring things to you in your cage, that it's for your highest good. And stop being scared of me, because I'm your foster mother and your friend. Whatever, says Bo. Whatever. I want to cry at the moment. I just want to cry. It wells up in my gut. Oh well. John is free of pain now, and that's a good thing. Bryant then introduced jurors to writings from the trial in 356 CE, Common Era, of Numerius, a governor in the Roman Empire. O illustrious Caesar, if it is fit to deny what hereafter will become of the guilty, the prosecutor asked, to which Emperor Julian replied, if it suffices to accuse, what will become of the innocent? Indeed. Next cited was the fictional lawyer Horace, Rumpole of the Bailey, Rumpole, created by British writer and barrister John Mortimer. Fictional character though he may be, he did one thing in every case he tried. He would always talk of the golden thread that winds its way through our criminal law, the golden thread of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Let me repeat that. Proof beyond a reasonable doubt. It's funny, I've been in my writing talking about a golden thread running through my life too in recent days. Golden threads pulling our fates together, woven by Grandmother Spider. That idea that someone can only be convicted on the basis of proof of the offence beyond a reasonable doubt is a hallmark of the Anglo-Canadian criminal justice system. It comes handed down from the Magna Carta, I believe, from the British system. A bulwark that separates our system from those of other societies, considerably less free and democratic. Post-COVID, can't really say that about Canada anymore, can you? Evil it was. That thing, that creature, Trudeau, and his evil complicity with the global poisoning. Fuck you. Mama T has spoken. Bryant was serving the jury feel-good stuff about Western civilization and the basis of British jurisprudence. Its importance is unchallenged. This golden thread is very much a part of the fabric of Canadian society. And was permanently enshrined in our Charter of Rights and Freedoms, though it existed long before it was written back in the early 1980s. Once Bryant finished his remarks, all Campbell could do was return to his cell and wait. I was relaxed. He, Bryant, made every point. He was shocking and he was brave. He can be arrogant and condescending, but he has a sense of humour and he is loyal. And he is extremely smart. A lot of people don't see his sense of humour. They don't see his intelligence and his loyalty to his clients. He was there every day. I would rather have no other lawyer on that case. When the jury finally returned on May 23rd, 2011, after 4 days of deliberations, none of them looked towards the bikers in the prisoner's dock. This isn't good, Campbell thought. Right, my darlings, we're up to the final chapter, chapter 34. Mama T's reaching completion of her current mission. You've always got to finish what you started, people of Earth. All the birds are so happy today, flying around. But you know what? I got really harassed, mightily harassed, by BB the scrub turkey yesterday. He's nowhere in sight. Maybe he'll turn up later in the afternoon or something. It's a bit weird because he was full on yesterday. He was intense. Ah well, it is what it is, people of Earth. Now Beau's chewing his Banksia flower. We've got one each. What you doing, little Beau? Are you playing? He's going to rip up newspaper too. They quite like doing that for some reason. Ah well. Contentment and happiness and peace at Sacred Space Titania's realm. Chapter 34. Riding off. It used to be you knew who your enemies were. Lorne Campbell. 4 years, 1 month and 17 days after the mass arrests and the shutdown of their former bunker-like clubhouse on Eastern Avenue, there were tears in the eyes of at least one Crown attorney as the 5 downtown Toronto Hells Angels were all acquitted on charges of belonging to a criminal organisation. 4 years, 1 month and 17 days. My goodness, that was a long argument, wasn't it? You ripping paper again, Kermie? Kookaburra just flew in. Hello, Cookie. I've got some chicken for you. Oh, yes, I have. I'll wait till he comes closer and sits on the Hills hoist. Campbell was found guilty of conspiracy to traffic cocaine, while Neil, Miles and Barman were convicted of charges relating to trafficking GHB, a charge for, I'm not sure what GHB is. Is that like methamphetamine or ice, or like what they call P in New Zealand, PCP? Is it the same drug? I have no idea. You see? Still things I don't know what they are. But I don't need to know, do I? I'm not going to do anything like that. I'm not interested in it. Yuck. Anyway. A charge for possession of a restricted firearm stuck against Pula. It was as good a result as Campbell could have hoped for, considering the evidence. He knew from the start he didn't have a realistic shot of beating the cocaine charge, since he was caught on tape discussing the price of a kilo of cocaine with Atwell. He, Bryant, couldn't fight that, Campbell says. They had it on audio and video. How could he fight the 34? That's the price of the cocaine. The length of his pre-trial custody more than covered the amount of time he would have got for his cocaine conspiracy conviction, which meant he was a free man. They still owe me some time on my next conviction, he says jokingly. Get you shredding all your newspaper, you mad bird. What are you going to poopy cans on if you shred it all? Oh well, whatever floats your boat, as they say. He never did get any of the $1,000 Shaky Dave had promised for setting him up. I laugh every time I hear that word, that name, because it reminds me of a former casual lover. Used to shiver and shake in front of me. Bring his cousin and they both shiver and shake. I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you men? I swear to God, what was wrong with them? They must have been on something that makes them shake. I have no idea. It was odd. Anyway, what can I say? I'm a powerful and voluptuous and intense and quite wonderful woman when the going's good. You haven't managed to piss me off. Just saying. Oh, you have to laugh. You do, you have to laugh. Anyway. He never did get any of the $1,000 Shaky Dave had promised for setting him up for the coke deal, or the $425 for the eyeglasses eaten by Atwell's dog. I wonder if someone had threatened them about me and that's why they shook when they saw me, because I didn't bloody do anything to him. It's all very weird. I'll never know the truth though, will I? Because they're too shaky and cowardly to tell me what was actually behind all of that odd, weird and unsavoury behaviour. Just saying. He used to appear at the back of the crowd at the Live Wire bar, you know, where I danced for 12 years to live bands, and you'd just see the dreadlocks and then one eye peering at me. Did that for years after we had our little encounter. It's odd. But you know what? As my very wise at times former forensic psych nurse friend used to say to me, you can't make sense out of nonsense, and some things you never get to the end of the story because the individuals involved are too lackluster or cowardly or piss weak. But honestly, the sight of him and his cousin shaking like leaves was quite frankly a bit edifying and comical at times. I'd look at them and think, what? Then I'd just turn my back and keep dancing because I'm not interested in anyone's bullshit. I'm there to dance, enjoy the music, have a lovely evening, go home safely. Not interested in any of the other extraneous insanities that went on in that scene. Like, literally. Of course, Shaky Dave and Brutus were now vanished into a witness protection program. For Campbell, the big thing was that the criminal organisation charges didn't stick. That had mattered most to Campbell right from the beginning. And in the end, nobody pleaded down to any conspiracy charge. Members obviously committed crimes, but Campbell felt strongly that the Hells Angels was an organisation that included criminals, not a strictly criminal enterprise. For many members of the public, that's just wordplay, but for Campbell, it's a very personal and important distinction. And you know what? He happens to be correct about that. It's true. You can't paint with a broad brush. You have to take people on their individual behaviours. It's like that, not just in, motorcycle organisations. It's like that in every echelon of society. You've got to judge accordingly to their actions and deeds and sometimes their words, although it's a bit ridiculous to punish someone for having an opinion you don't agree with or being a bit poetic or hyperbolative, as I'm guilty of being at times. So it is what it is, people of Earth. Good and evil in the garden at Sacred Space, Brisbane, Australia. Not to believe this is an insult to his many, not to believe this, should be a comma there, is an insult to his many friends and clubs over the years, no matter what the police might say. They were friends and brothers first, and criminals second, if at all. In an attention-craving world where there's no greater insult than to ignore the existence of someone, Campbell and Evelyn say, they plan to pretend Shaky Dave Atwill was never born. Evelyn Campbell says she considers Shaky Dave utterly insignificant in the big scheme of things. Dave came into our life and went out of our life. He caused problems, and those problems are gone. We don't even think of that fuck, Campbell adds. On the other side of the country, Omid Mo Bayani of the United Nations was due in court on September 7th, 2011, for sentencing after his drug trafficking conviction related to Campbell's trial. True to form, Bayani drifted away again. He still hadn't reappeared 15 weeks later and was sentenced, in absentia, to 7 years in prison, while Haney, BC, Hells Angel Vincenzo Jimmy Sansaloni was hit with a 6-year sentence for setting up the meeting between Barman and Bayani that ultimately led to what a judge called the biggest seizure of the date rape drug in Canadian history. Maybe that's what GHB is. Maybe it's a kind of ketamine then. I'll have to Google it later, because now I'm curious. I want to know. Campbell's downtown Toronto clubmate Mark Stables hadn't been picked up in the raids that netted Campbell, but he was in legal troubles as well after security at Vancouver International Airport found Hells Angels paraphernalia in his luggage in November 2006. A background check revealed that Stables hadn't taken out Canadian citizenship since being brought here from Scotland when he was 7 years old. 42 years after his arrival in Canada, Stables faced deportation to Scotland because he was a high-ranking Hells Angel who had served as treasurer and Sergeant-at-Arms for his charter. He had no criminal record and was a fitness enthusiast with black belts in karate and jiu-jitsu. He supported himself by running a downtown Toronto gym, whose clients included professional mixed martial arts fighters and several Toronto police officers. Stable said he left the Angels in 2009, but the Immigration and Refugee Board ruling disputed this, arguing that his club tattoos showed no exit date. He was put on a jet back to his birthplace. This guy, I don't think, even gets speeding tickets, Campbell says. He's a good family man. He didn't drink, didn't do drugs, worked hard all his life, paid all his taxes. Nothing criminal about that guy. He hated criminal activity. When Campbell returned home with Evelyn, he felt more than a little stunned, like he was trapped in a twilight zone. It was unreal. Imagine being sent back to a country you left when you were 7 years old and, you've got no connection to anymore. It's really awful, isn't it? I wonder what became of him back in Scotland, and, well, it's just as bloody cold as Canada in the winter, or maybe not quite as cold, but anyway. The cold and the fog and the damp. Jesus. Not Jesus, but you know what I mean. It was unreal. It was like you don't know how to act. I might have looked normal, but I didn't know how to act. So much had changed, including himself. Time behind bars had conditioned him to blank out his peripheral vision and walk with his eyes aimed down and straight ahead. It also made him extremely possessive about his things. In jail, nobody touches your stuff. I'm a bit weird like that about people putting their stuff on top of mine and touching my... And I've never been to jail, I've never been a criminal, people of earth, but I can't stand that. They used to do that at Ecstatic Dance. Wherever I put my stuff, somebody would put their stuff right next to or on top of or touching mine, and I'd be freaking the fuck out. Why am I like that? I don't know. I don't know why I'm like that. Anyway. I also don't like being touched by strangers, certainly not sexual touching. Ooh. But even if it's just sometimes an affectionate, if I don't know you, don't touch me, or, ask, is it okay if I give you a hug, or I feel like hugging you, and then I'll quite happily, I'm an affectionate, loving woman, warm, and I'll quite happily return the hug. But, especially strange men reaching over and grabbing at me or trying to hug me or touching me. I go insane, people of earth. It's because of my childhood and all the sick essays and happened in adulthood as well. It's just awful. It's awful how I've been treated. So now as an older woman, I'm a bit bloody trigger happy about that. Not that I have a gun or I'm going to shoot anyone, but you know what I mean. I just fly off the handle a bit. You're singing again. You singing, my little boy? You singing? He's hunched right down, pressed right down low while he's singing, which is a bit unusual. Lots of singing today. You must be a happy birdie. I haven't heard Kermie sing for the last few days. He's got a beautiful song when he really cuts loose. See, there's that imagery again. Cuts loose. Kermie, you need to sing for our people of Earth so they can hear your beautiful singing. He's got the most beautiful lyrical voice. It's gorgeous. But he doesn't sing as often as little Bo does. Oh well, different personalities. Right, here we are. In jail, nobody touches your stuff. Even a little thing like getting up to speed on computers or learning how to use a smartphone was a challenge. I threw one across the room. I didn't have any patience. I hear you, brother. Been there myself more than once. Some things remain constant, amidst all of the change. It remains a given that connivers are people to be shunned. Loyalty remains a virtue. A true man plays the cards he's dealt and doesn't whine. The best things in life are measured in quality rather than quantity. It takes more courage to love than to hate. That's true, people of Earth. There's power in an honest story, even if it's not always flattering. If you have a few rock-solid people around you, you're a lucky man, or in my case, woman. Campbell walked out of jail still believing all of these things. He maintained his integrity. I like that. Once at home, it was only natural to take stock of his life and consider how he planned to live out his final years. Campbell belonged to a club that spanned the globe with members on 5 continents. At the same time, he missed the scruffy, uncorporate, often ultra rude days when partying to excess was a priority. The circus had moved on, and he wasn't convinced it was going to a better place. Some members of the Port Hope 8, Merv, Indian Blaker, Gary, Nutty, Kamo, Rick Sauvé, who somehow managed to avoid being given a nickname, and Jeff Boom Boom McLeod are blocked from ever joining a 1%er club because of parole stipulations. Gordon, Dogmap, Van Harlem had quit the choice years before and moved west. Armand, in the trunk, Sanguini, was dead from an overdose of heroin, while Larry, Beaver, Hurren had died in a motorcycle accident. That meant Campbell was the only one in the Port Hope case to have moved on to the Hells Angels. He still considers the death of Bill Matiak a sad waste of life, but he also still doesn't regret carrying a gun that night or using it to protect his clubmates. It remains a deep source of pain that he wasn't believed when he stepped up in court and tried to take responsibility for the shooting. There's also a sense of awe at how his old group hung together and refrained from pointing fingers, even when they faced serious prison time for their silence. In prison nowadays, it's no respect, Campbell says. Never would 8 guys stick together like that today. It would not happen now. Guys were different back then. They were guys that had a lot to lose and still didn't say a thing. They did their fucking time and never said a word other than that they're innocent. Innocent completely. That went a long ways internationally. They all earned the utmost respect from every 1%er club in the world. I'm so proud. Some old biker haunts, such as the Genosha, the Queens, and the Atherley Arms, went out of business years ago. Others have had dramatic makeovers, like the Cadillac, which is now a social services drop-in centre instead of a hardcore bucket of blood watering hole. Phil Boudreau, the biker who likes to see himself as a junior Campbell, was rearrested for a parole violation not long after being interviewed for this book. So much changes, so much stays the same. In French, plus ça change, plus c'est la même chose. Campbell loves to hear how Indian Blaker is cruising roadways into the 21st century on the same Harley Sportster that he rode back in the 1970s, and Indian bought it second hand back then. Guys back then seemed more comfortable in their own skin, Campbell says. Campbell can't shake the feeling that his old world has been swamped by waves of paid informants as clubs expand around the globe. It used to be you knew who your enemies were. I'm 64 years old. I don't want to be 74 and back behind bars because of an informant like Shaky Dave. This past 4 years behind bars was because of other people's lack of due diligence. Sometimes I feel I can write all my friends' names on the back of a fucking postage stamp. And I'm happy with that. Oh, that really hurt. My sciatica went. Which is why I twitched, people of Earth. A few of the changes are for the better, such as the fact that most Hells Angels charters no longer allow smoking at meetings. A lot of guys are older. It bothers people at meetings nowadays. Some other changes are just signs of the times. He sounds like an old cowboy, wistfully noting the shrinking frontier when he observes that there's a general reluctance to sleep out under the stars on extended rides. When they go on runs nowadays, nobody camps. It's all motels. I don't mind putting my coat over myself by my bike, my helmet for a pillow. You don't need anything else but a helmet. Campbell's hardcore reputation didn't go away when he stopped wearing a club patch. He was reminded of this when a man approached him at a concert and asked, within a few minutes of saying hello, whether Campbell would kill his wife. "I'll pay you," the man said. "Get that out of your mind," Campbell replied. That's the mother of your kids. Like my filthy ex-husband, Michael. I came back from that strangulation. I said, you low down, vicious dog. No matter how much you hated me, you should have shown at least enough basic respect as the mother of your children. But that animal had no respect, not even for his own daughters, which is why I was leaving People of Earth when he organised that strangulation. The fucking pig. To this day, I hate him. I hated him before the strangulation, by the way. All the viciousness over the years, the treachery, the condescension, the troublemaking, the splitting. Well, is it any surprise that... No, I won't say it. I won't say it, but you know what I'm thinking, People of Earth. ADHD, my ass. He damaged me, damaged his own children. Then the damage continued with the Rosilio babies. And on it went and on it went. Until I met Courtney, who actually was fairly kind to my daughter, gave her a Mercedes to drive around in, an ancient Mercedes he inherited from his father. Let her drive around in that vehicle for 2 years. After, that was, actually I think it was 3 years, because she was at university at Toowoomba at the time. In the end I said to her, I've been broken up with Courtney for, I think it was about 2 years. I said, I don't like us being beholden to him. Time to give the car back, which she did do, and he accepted graciously. But in that instance, he was a very good father, role model to my Crystal, whose only other really good role model of a father was my friend and adopted brother Jared, who's only about 14 years older than her. But he was always good and kind and supportive of me and my little children when we escaped that awful marriage. So, you see, swings and roundabouts, good and evil. It is what it is, People of Earth. Campbell wasn't totally shocked by the approach, recalling how a middle-aged woman he didn't know had once walked up to him to ask if he'd kill her son. "Why would you think I'd do that?" Campbell asked. "I know all about you," the mother replied. "I just laughed at them," Campbell says. "I know who you are. I know what you do. I've heard that so many times." As a survivor of more than 4 decades of outlaw biker life, Campbell has spoken privately with people who have done violent things that haunt them. I've counselled people who've gone over the line, couldn't deal with what they've done. My advice is, learn to live with it or turn yourself in. Campbell can be brutally blunt, but he refuses to say a bad thing about Eleanor, the mother of his daughter Janice. He freely acknowledges that she deserved far better than his treatment of her. After he got out of the Don jail, it seemed time to appreciate Evelyn, his daughter Janice, his grandkids Gemily, Joriana and Kadra, and Evelyn's adult daughter Kylie, who grew to become an excellent equestrienne in her own right. He knows he has missed far too many family events because of club commitments and wants that to change in his remaining years. Before there was always something, Campbell says. Runs, anniversaries, parties. Now there's time. Which ironically they only get him now that he's an older man. Much, much older man. It's funny how suddenly you get sentimental and you have time. It's another evil that my daughter abandoned me because I have time to invest in her now. And well, she didn't want me 2 years ago and she doesn't probably want me now, and it is what it is. Cumulative damage from years of trauma from actual bastards. And I will never shrink or obfuscate from that truth. Contrary to popular myth, a Hell's Angel can retire in good standing if he has the respect of his fellow members. That's what Campbell did shortly after his release from the Don jail. He handed back his vest and jewellery, his tracksuits, t-shirts and anything else with the trademarked Hell's Angels death head on it. Such material never actually belongs to members, but is always just on loan to them. On death or retirement or expulsion, it must be returned to the club. Campbell also had the exit date 09-06-11 tattooed under his Hell's Angels tattoo on his upper left arm, along with the word left. That's a key word for a former Angel, since out means kicked out of the club, while left is the biker equivalent of honourable discharge, bestowing something akin to Hell's Angel emeritus status. That done, an unfamiliar sense of calm settled over Campbell. Since I got out of jail, I can't be bothered getting pissed off, Campbell says, wasting energy on little things. Don't sweat the small things. I'm like that now. I've never been scared of death. Everyone dies. I still have bitterness, but I fight it very well. Good on you, Campbell. Good on you. Despite the ungodly names of his clubs and his scamming of the Bible in jail, Campbell says he still believes in a supreme deity. His God is like an all-loving parent who doesn't need him to be humble. Some aspects of his God sound a lot like Campbell himself. I think God forgives. He's got a sense of humour. I don't get down on my knees and ask for forgiveness. I believe that he automatically forgives you. I don't think that you have to automatically go down on your knees. Campbell also has his own strong views on karma. What goes around comes around. Eventually, might take several lifetimes, but it'll get you in the end, people of Earth. I believe that too. The good that you do or the bad that you do, the major things. He says he's always reaping positive benefits for at least some of his own personal karma. As harsh as I've been very good to the people I love and the people around me. That's come back to me. Kermie's sleeping. People ask, why would you join a motorcycle club? I had no stable family growing up. Lots of cousins and aunts and uncles, but no stable family. That club was the first stable family I had. If you don't love that life, I could see why it freaks people out. Would I recommend that someone join a club today? Only if you could handle the hardships, the heat from the cops. Bernie Gindin had a saying, lose your job, lose your wife, go to jail. That's the 3 things you're taking a chance of losing. For my grandkids, I don't discourage anybody, but I don't recommend it. I think you have to be a certain brand to last in that kind of life. It fit for me. There were a lot of good times. I love riding my motorcycle and the camaraderie that I never had growing up. I never regretted it, but a lot of people would. The advice I would give to younger kids is more general. Don't be led astray. Listen to your conscience. Be comfortable in your own skin. Campbell maintains his friendships with former club mates such as Wayne Willerton, his old mentor Bernie Gindin, and Larry Valentine. Willerton never left his day job at General Motors in Oshawa and never struck it rich with his sales and franchising schemes. He retired on a pension in 1996 after 36 years on the assembly line. For his part, Gindin growls that he's broke but proud as he enters his 8th decade. I don't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of. The frog's missing some teeth, but declines to have dental work done, in case he gets into yet another fight and has them smashed up again. That's a mistake, people of Earth. You should always make sure you have nice teeth, even if they're gone too far and you end up with dentures. You must always present with a reasonably nice smile. These teeth cost me 10 grand of my very small inheritance, and it's a dental implant that goes right up into my nose under here. And they warned me, they said, if anyone punches you in the face, you'll be permanently disfigured, and it's a chance I took. No one's gratefully has punched me in the face, you understand? But I've noticed that once travelled, they're not even anymore. The implanters, I don't know, was that the implant? I'm not even sure, but I think it's the crown that is sunken further up. So can't even remember which one is the implant. Anyway, all jokes aside, anyone smashes me in the face, just breaking my entire jaw and facial musculature. And let me just tell you delicately, you do that to me, I will kill you. When I'm healed, of course. It'll take some healing, because your face is your fortune, and I've spent a lot on this face, believe it or not. I don't believe in Botox, so I'm wrinkled and I've got all the broken capillaries that could be fixed with laser surgery too, but don't have money for that. The only thing I got going for me that I fought hard for is my teeth, people of Earth. I have an aversion to shitty, crappy teeth, because when I was a very small girl, 7 years old, my mother used to force me to wash her dentures out with bleach every morning. Went on for weeks, and they used to stink, and I used to vomit a bit in my mouth. 7 years old. So one day I left a little bit too much bleach on them and didn't rinse them thoroughly, and Gisela threw them back into her jawbones and gagged on the actual bleach, you understand. She never asked me to clean her dentures again, and surprisingly she didn't beat me for that either. It's like she kind of understood and respected me having my little bit of defiance, and it's why I was so distressed when she was suffering with Alzheimer's in that dreadful high care facility, and yet again they were feeding my mother something that tasted like bleach. Things sometimes come full circle in life and make you feel ashamed. But that was my only rebellion against my mother when I was 7, and it was well deserved, by the way. Clean your own fucking teeth and look after them. They're yours and they're precious, says the Mama T, eating another lolly. He also says he's not concerned about any civilian passing judgment on his life. I don't give a shit. I've done my time. I don't have to kiss anybody's ass. I did it and stood up and didn't rat out anybody. What the fuck? I didn't have to bow down to anybody. I did my time. The man who brought the choice back onto the road left the Hells Angels. I'm going to have to move into the sun. I'm getting wheezy again. The man who brought the choice back onto the road left the Hells Angels in the summer of 2005 in good standing. That's the problem today. If it wasn't for the patch, they would have no balls. There's a lot I can say about that, but I'll be silent. And Mama T is rarely silent, but I think those certain people that I'm referring to obliquely here can sense my utter contempt to this very day for how I was treated. The only thing they have is their patch. Campbell and Valentine have been close friends since the late 1970s. And Valentine was there when Campbell celebrated his 64th birthday by a lake north of Toronto. And I was kind to your woman, making sure she got her teeth fixed and looked pretty again. That was how I was repaid. No, I haven't forgotten. That will go down on your permanent record in my memory. Traitorous fucking dogs. But never mind. I was there trying to find a partner and I wasn't successful either. So it's kind of comical when you think about it. They turned ugly when I rejected their friend who was fresh out of jail with gigantic block letters of Tanya written across his belly, and couldn't see why I might find that unappetizing, people of Earth. Also, the guy reeked of desperation, and also, I don't fuck any man, not even for $50. So fuck you. I can hear laughter in the spheres. Laughter in the spheres. Hashtag consent at all times, morning, noon and night. Don't throw your bloodless, weak, piss-weak curs at me and expect me to fuck them. And that goes for a certain somebody that I was in love with in recent memory too. Dog, dog, dog and dog. Will I forgive one day? Maybe. It depends on how I feel in any given time in the space-time continuum. But a good and kind and decent man died yesterday, and he makes all of those kinds of men look very, very poor indeed. When they weren't strumming and singing tunes by Merle Haggard, Waylon Jennings and Hank Williams, they enjoyed classic country from a CD player on his ultra classic anniversary edition Harley. This was too much for a younger guest at the party who was just in her early 20s. She repeatedly replaced what she called the old man music with her own CD of more youth-friendly tunes. Rankling Valentine, says Campbell. He never said a word. He just took out the CD and went down to the lake with it. He came back without the CD. The next time he's here, we'll go down to the lake and see if we can find the CD. That's typical Larry. He just makes things funny. Campbell's heart and back aren't what they once were, but he still cruises on his Harley with classic country blaring on the speakers, and he still gets his hackles up when he sees riders who don't know how to handle their bikes. I pull up beside them and ask them if they want me to teach them how to ride. Like many Canadians, Campbell was shocked by public shootings involving gangsters in Toronto in the summer of 2012. One took place in the crowded food court of the Eaton Centre shopping mall, killing 2 people and injuring 6. Another was at a neighbourhood block party on Dunsey Avenue in suburban Scarborough, when 2 innocent people were killed and 23 wounded by gunfire. Jesus, not Jesus. All of it, ugly. When he heard reports of the shootings, he said he felt grateful that he didn't succeed in his own efforts to traffic machine guns in the 1980s. It would have been chaos. It's interesting that occurred in their summer 2012, because it happened in our winter here in 2012 too. The same bad behaviour, public shootings. I wonder what was the driving force really behind that. No doubt drugs. But the world hasn't been the same since December 2012, has it? They said the world would end, and I said, that's a load of horse shit. The world will never end. But I tell you, the world's been on a swift decline ever since 2012, up to and including the last 5 years, 2020 to 2025. It's been weird, it's been evil, it's been chilling, it's been harrowing. Turkey's here at long last to stalk me and harass me. What you doing, bastard buzzard? I was just saying before that I haven't seen you all morning. Can almost set the clock by you though, can't I? Like all my stalkers, he's devoted to the cause. Goddess bless. You have to laugh, it's a bit funny sometimes. Anyway, it would have been chaos. I've thought about it often, just not knowing where they were going to go. Back then I never thought about that. I was just thinking about making money. I regretted later that money came before my morals. I'm just so glad it didn't happen. Yes, Kermie, the turkey's here's going straight for the cupboard looking for marbles. But I moved the marbles yesterday, so what are you going to do? Lose your marbles because there's no marbles to play with? He's looking up and down. He's going to fly on top and look for food. There's no food because you ate it all. Yes, actually no, that's a lie. He ate it all the day before that. There's up on top of the cabinet. I moved the food away because he's a pest. He remains fiercely protective of his pack, and that includes his pets. When a visiting biker threw something... Why do you do that, bird? Why? Stop it. Get down. Go on, get. Alright, this is how it's going to be. I'm not tolerating his bad behaviour anymore. I didn't aim to hit him, but he just casually sidestepped it. Now he's down, but I've got to retrieve my slipper. Oh, you know what? Who cares? We're near the end of this wonderful, weird story, people of Earth. When a visiting biker threw something at his Australian Shepherd Sparrow, Campbell punched the man in the head and threw him off his property. He doesn't throw punches as frequently or as hard as in his youth, but he still uncorked a righteous smack onto that biker, who was at least 20 years his junior. Mama T didn't throw the slipper at you, bird. I don't believe in hurting animals. I would have done the same if someone did something to my dog. That's why I was so upset about those vets being so malfeasant the day my dog died. I don't think I'll ever recover from that. That was beyond awful and evil too. Anyway, what can you do? I was at their fucking mercy with a dying dog, and they knew it. Oh, they weaponised that all fucking day. Monsters they are. Animal Welfare League are monsters and will never get a cent of money from me. Hopefully anyone I know, as long as I draw breath, what they put us through. Anyway. Yes, it's my slipper. Yes, I know. Nothing trumps family loyalty, even where dogs are concerned. Until the day that I die, I'll live by that code, he says. When I'm 100 years old, I'll smack that guy again too. He also still has an idealised view of brotherhood, even though he never had any brothers by blood. Oh, come on, BB, why are you going in there? I've even got this big metal grate against it and he's still trying to get in there. I'm going to have to put chicken wire across the doors and settle that argument. Don't know what his obsession is, but it's odd. Makes sense only to a scrub turkey, I guess. When I die, I want to be surrounded by men. What's a man? Good to his family, good to his friends, and loyal. Doesn't mean a tough guy. That'll never leave me. That's one of the extremes I'll keep. He offers almost no apologies for roads he has travelled because of his extreme nature, but there's at least one thing he'd like to take back. I've justified everything I've done, except burning the family house. I'm lucky with the life I've led. I've got regrets, but everyone's got those. Campbell sometimes marvels that he's still alive. Me too, baby boy. Me too. So many of his old buddies are now dead from bullets or blades or drugs or bike accidents, and yet here he is. Equally amazing is that his daughter turned out so well and loves him so strongly, considering his severe deficiencies as a young father. He loves to boast how Janice somehow put herself through college while raising a family. He gets a little misty when he talks about how his granddaughter, Kadra, once couldn't bear to see him go at the end of a visit. She cried, "I won't see you for years." She just loved me to death. His voice fills with wonder as he talks of how Evelyn wrote and visited him constantly while he was behind bars. She could have just walked away. These men are easily as strong and protective as any man he has met in his decades among tattooed bikers. There's an irony here that doesn't escape him. Somehow, he has ended up with the stable, loving family he so wanted as a child. Well, I never even had that now, but I still have Lynn and Jared, so I'm grateful for their staunch loyalty and love for me and for a few other precious friends. I'm grateful for all of them. Campbell knows that mainstream society looks harshly on how he has spent his life. For him, it somehow seemed normal and even right at the time, even though many of the stories in these pages are bizarre, even to himself in the retelling. In the end, it also felt natural to quietly move on from life in an outlaw biker brotherhood so that he could spend more time with his family. It felt natural because his story has always been about family. I love the club, but I love my wife more. I love my family more. And that's the end of Satan's Choice. I won't bother reading the acknowledgements and the bibliographies and the index. I'll just finish it there, and it's been a bit of a journey I went on, lots of triggering and lots of memories and a tweaking of my spirit and a recalibration of who I am as a woman and as a shaman and as a spirit and as a witch and a Jew and a voodoo queen and a Viking berserker queen and a daughter of the gods and Boadicea's babe. Positive, empowering labels I've incorporated and taken ownership of and helped me to get through life in dark and turgid and often life-threatening times. It's bizarre too and quirky and unusual, but it is what it is. So here we are, beautiful people of planet Earth. I'll come back tomorrow. I think I will read The Hobbit. But if any of you viewers care to take the time to put in the comment section of this video any suggestions of books you might like me to read next, I'm open to suggestions. And but yes, I feel The Hobbit calling to me. And I got confirmation of that this morning when I opened up my Facebook, someone had put up a funny meme about finding the One Ring and that they didn't know what the language meant and what it really was. They knew it was made out of real gold, and the comments section was hilarious because everyone recognised it was one of those replicas of the ring from Lord of the Rings. So I thought, there's synchronicity for you, a reminder from Creator or Great Spirit to read The Hobbit. But then again, I could read The Lord of the Rings, but it's 4 volumes and take a long time to plough through with you, especially with my habit of drifting and segueing and floating in and out of the space-time continuum, you understand. But anyway, here we are. We finished that interesting book. I found it quite interesting, actually. And good afternoon from the Birdie Boys and Sacred Space.